looking me in my face telling me, yo, don't worry about it, bro. I got you. And I never see him again.
Jay-Z and DeHaven came up from nothing. Same block, same grind, same dangers. DeHaven took bullets for him, kept his name clean, and sat 13 years without folding. But when he got out, the loyalty he expected was gone. No calls, no help, just silence from the man he protected.
Like the way I would look at it, if you could compare him to like a character now, I'd say he's like the Penguin. He's like ruthless like that.
Now Jay-Z's own people are talking, calling him ruthless, cold, and worse. And what they say happened on camera is shaking everything. Let's get into it. The inner circle speaks. Some of Jay-Z's closest former affiliates are breaking their silence in ways that are shaking the entire music industry to its core. Let's start with the man who was there from the very beginning, Damon Dash. Now, if you know anything about Roc-A-Fella Records, you know that Dame wasn't just some random business partner. This man was the engine. He was the hustle. He was the gasoline that fueled the entire operation. He was the one screaming, "We run New York," while Jay-Z delivered the bars. Together with Kareem Biggs Burke, they built something from absolutely nothing, when no record label in the country would give Jay-Z a deal. They pressed their own records. They sold CDs out of car trunks. They hustled their way into meetings that nobody wanted to give them. They created a lifestyle brand before that term even existed in the music industry vocabulary. We're talking about a partnership that produced some of the most iconic moments in hip-hop history. Reasonable Doubt, The Blueprint, the Roc-A clothing line that had every kid in America trying to dress like they were from Marcy Projects, the movies, the parties, the lifestyle. Dame and Jay were inseparable. Two sides of the same coin, each one essential to the other's success. And then, according to Dame Dash himself, Jay-Z took it all and left him with nothing but memories and lawsuits. In a recent interview with Cam Capone News, Dame didn't hold back. When asked about his relationship with Jay-Z today, Dame made it crystal clear that this isn't about the past anymore. It's about active, ongoing sabotage of his livelihood. This isn't old wounds that never heal. This is fresh blood, according to Dame.
Honestly, like, unless he's fucking my money up, I don't give a fuck what Jay's doing, to be honest. But when he's fucking with my money, that's when I be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I already walked away from the block. Leave me the fuck alone.
And Dame didn't stop there. He went into explicit detail about how Jay-Z has allegedly torpedoed his business deals for years. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, systematically, whenever Dame was on the verge of a major payday. According to Dame, when they were selling Roc-A for approximately $400 million, Dame was set to walk away with $40 million that would have set him up for life. But right before Tommy Hilfiger signed the papers, Jay-Z allegedly made a public announcement distancing himself from Roc-A, and the deal fell apart like a house of cards in a hurricane.
We were selling Roc-A, right, for like $400 million or whatever. I was gonna make $40 million. And right before Tommy Hilfiger signs the papers, he makes an announcement saying that he's not fucking with Roc-A, that he's only fucking with S. Carter. The whole shit up. And I just feel like he did that only because I was gonna make $40 million. Like, he just couldn't see, like, they get so mad if I'm gonna make money off them. Like, every time I could have made a really big check, he's always stepped in and intentionally fucked it up.
Think about what Dame is saying here. He's not accusing Jay-Z of simply being a bad friend or a disloyal partner. He's accusing him of actively monitoring his business moves and intervening specifically to prevent him from succeeding. That's not neglect, that's warfare. That's someone who allegedly can't stand to see their former partner win, even decades after their professional relationship ended. But perhaps the most chilling moment in the interview came when Dame was asked to describe Jay-Z's character, without hesitation, without pausing to soften the blow or find diplomatic language. Dame compared his former business partner to one of the most ruthless villains in pop culture.
The way I would look at it, like, if you could compare him to like a character now, I'd say he's like the Penguin. He's like ruthless like that with his friends or people that help.
The Penguin. Think about that for a second. Let that comparison sink in. That's not just an insult. That's a character study. That's a psychological profile wrapped in a pop culture reference. The Penguin is calculating. The Penguin is patient. The Penguin operates from the shadows while maintaining a veneer of respectability. The Penguin will smile in your face while plotting your destruction. And according to the man who helped build Roc-A-Fella from the ground up, that's exactly who Sean Carter is behind closed doors when the cameras aren't rolling and the public isn't watching. But Dame Dash isn't the only one talking. Enter Gene Deal, the former bodyguard for Sean Diddy Combs and the late Notorious B.I.G. Now, Gene wasn't directly in Jay-Z's camp, but his proximity to Diddy gave him a front row seat to to one of the most talked about friendships in hip-hop history. He was in the rooms, he was at the parties, he was watching when these moguls thought nobody important was paying attention. And what he's revealed on camera has people questioning everything they thought they knew about Jay-Z's inner circle. In a series of explosive interviews on The Art of Dialogue, Gene Deal painted a picture of Jay-Z and Diddy's relationship that goes far beyond business collaborations and industry networking. According to Gene, these two weren't just collaborators. They were inseparable in ways that raised eyebrows even among their own teams.
How close was Diddy and Jay-Z? They was close enough that they wasn't playing basketball, they wasn't playing baseball, they wasn't playing football, and they wasn't playing hockey or soccer for Diddy to come on stage, pat him on his ass, and then make the statement to people in the world that can't nobody call me Sean but Jay-Z.
Gene went even further, describing what he called bizarre synchronicities between Jay-Z and Diddy that struck him as unusual, even in the anything-goes world of hip-hop excess. According to his account, the two moguls would casually check in on each other's romantic partners, and even dated women who looked remarkably similar at the same time, as if they were coordinating their personal lives the same way they might coordinate a business deal.
But they were so close that they had matching white girls together. Because when they used to see each other, they used to say, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? He'd be like, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? So I guess that's a certain type of closeness.
But Gene Deal's revelations weren't just about friendship dynamics and unusual personal habits. He also admitted to a moment where he nearly came to blows with Jay-Z himself, a confrontation that almost turned physical. According to Gene, during a trip in Cancun, Mexico, a dispute over nightclub entry nearly turned violent over what Gene perceived as disrespect. As Gene tells it, Jay-Z's team limited the number of people who could enter a club for free, and when the message was relayed through an assistant from Gene's neighborhood, Gene felt profoundly disrespected. In his own words, he was ready to knock Jay's head off if things escalated further. He only backed down to avoid costing the assistant her job, not because he had any respect for Jay-Z in that moment. Now, in another interview that sent shockwaves through hip-hop social media, Gene was asked directly about the growing speculation that Jay-Z could be next in the wake of Diddy's federal legal troubles. His answer was telling, and it's been replayed millions of times across every platform.
You could tell that the people in power had gave that reign to Diddy and Jay was next in line. So to separate him when in fact they may be two of the same, but because Jay-Z is low-key, that low-key sneaky shit, and Diddy is, and was rambunctious, just out with it, it don't mean that they not two of the same. One just a little quieter with his shit.
Two of the same, one just a little quieter with his shit. Those words have been echoing across the internet ever since Gene spoke them. They've been quoted in think pieces. They've been debated in comment sections. They've become a meme, a hashtag, a cultural moment. And when you combine what Gene Deal is saying with what Dame Dash has been saying for over a decade, a troubling pattern starts to emerge. A pattern of a man who allegedly operates ruthlessly behind the scenes while maintaining a pristine public image that's worth billions. But the inner circle isn't done talking. Not by a long shot, because in part 2, we're going to examine the people Jay-Z allegedly used his power to silence, from a legendary athlete who sacrificed everything for social justice to his own childhood best friend who took a bullet and a prison sentence for him. The power to blackball. In 2019, Jay-Z made a decision that would forever change his relationship with a significant portion of his fan base, a decision that many viewed as the ultimate sellout moment from a man who had built his entire brand on authenticity and loyalty to his roots. He entered into a partnership with the NFL, the same organization that had effectively blackballed Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee during the national anthem to protest police brutality against Black Americans, the same league that had colluded to keep one of its most talented quarterbacks unemployed for daring to use his platform for social justice. And according to Kaepernick's longtime partner, radio personality Nessa Diab, what Jay-Z did wasn't just disappointing, it was a calculated betrayal that cut deeper than any business deal. At the press conference announcing the deal, Jay-Z uttered words that would haunt him for years to come. I think we've moved past kneeling. I think it's time for action. For many who had supported Kaepernick's protest, those words felt like a knife in the back. Here was a man who had given up millions of dollars and his entire NFL career to stand up for social justice. And Jay-Z, hip-hop's most powerful figure, the man who rapped about being from the streets and understanding struggle, seemed to be telling the world that it was time to move on from Kaepernick's sacrifice. But according to Nessa, what happened behind closed doors was even worse than what the public saw. In 2025, she took to social media to directly accuse Jay-Z and Roc Nation of running coordinated smear campaigns against Kaepernick, campaigns specifically designed to make the public believe that Colin was somehow complicit in his own blackballing, that he was asking for too much money, that he didn't really want to play anymore.
And the worst part about during that time were the smear campaigns that were happening behind the scenes to try to discredit Colin publicly, to sway people to think that Colin was okay being blackballed or he was asking for a lot of money to play again. He was never offered a job the minute he protested. Never. Okay? And no. Like I said then, Jay-Z never spoke to Colin before he made that deal with the NFL. No. He only spoke to Colin after he made that deal, and he was okay with the deal and knew exactly what it would do to Colin, and he was okay with it. You know how I know? I was there. I heard the conversation.
I was there. I heard the conversation. Those 7 words carry enormous weight. This isn't hearsay passed through multiple sources. This isn't speculation based on circumstantial evidence. This isn't a blogger connecting dots. According to Nessa, she was physically present in the room when Jay-Z spoke to Colin after the deal was already signed and sealed, meaning he knew exactly what it would do to the movement Colin had sacrificed everything for, and he did it anyway, with full knowledge and apparent indifference. According to reports, the Roc Nation NFL partnership was worth approximately $25 million over 5 years, $5 million annually. Critics have argued that Jay-Z essentially took money from the league to help rehabilitate their public image while abandoning the very athlete whose protest he was now being paid to address through social justice initiatives. The irony was not lost on anyone paying attention. What makes this accusation particularly damaging is that it strikes at the heart of Jay-Z's carefully cultivated image as a champion of black empowerment and social progress. Here was a man who had positioned himself as a voice for the voiceless, allegedly taking money to help silence one of the most important protests of the modern civil rights era. But if you want to understand the full scope and devastating personal toll of these allegations of betrayal, you need to hear from DeHaven Irby. DeHaven isn't just some former associate or business partner who feels slighted. This man knew Jay-Z since they were 7 years old in the Marcy projects of Brooklyn. They walked to school together through gang territory. They survived the streets together during the crack epidemic. They were brothers in every sense of the word except blood. And according to DeHaven, he quite literally took a bullet for the man who would become hip-hop's first billionaire. In a raw, emotional interview with The Art of Dialogue that has now been viewed millions of times, DeHaven laid out what he calls decades of alleged betrayal, a story so painful that even watching it unfold on screen is difficult. According to his account, he introduced a teenage Jay-Z to the drug trade in the 1980s, taught him everything about street survival, mentored him through the dangerous world they inhabited, and was shot 5 times in 1989 while protecting his friend from rivals in Trenton, New Jersey. 5 bullets for Jay-Z. But the breaking point came in 1994. DeHaven claims he took a murder rap, a case he says was committed in self-defense during a drug deal gone wrong, specifically to keep Jay-Z's name clean as his friend pivoted away from the streets and toward a music career. He made a choice to sacrifice his own freedom so that Jay-Z could have a future. He served 13 years in Rahway State Prison, 13 years of his life gone. And when he finally got out in 2007, expecting some form of loyalty, some acknowledgement, some gratitude from the man he'd sacrificed everything for, he found nothing but silence and closed doors.
Look at me in my face, right? During my trial, look at me in my face telling me, yo, don't worry about it, bro. I got you. And I never see him again.
Don't worry about it, bro. I got you, and I never see him again. Let those words sink in. For 13 years, 4,145 days, DeHaven sat in Rahway State Prison while Jay-Z built a billion-dollar empire. While Jay-Z was collecting platinum plaques and Grammy Awards, DeHaven was counting down days on a prison calendar. While Jay-Z was marrying Beyonce and becoming a global icon, DeHaven was in a cell. No visits from his childhood best friend. No legal fees repaid. DeHaven's family had to borrow $35,000 for his defense. defense, no equity in the label that DeHaven claims he helped inspire through the stories and experiences they shared. Nothing. Absolute silence from the man who had looked him in the eyes and promised he had his back. And when asked point blank how he would label Jay-Z today, after all these years of processing this betrayal, DeHaven didn't mince words.
What would you label him right now?
A coward, right? A coward. Cold-hearted.
A coward, cold-hearted. Coming from anyone else, those might just be insults thrown in anger, but coming from a man who took 5 bullets and 13 years for Jay-Z, those words carry a weight that's almost impossible to measure. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of DeHaven's story is how it affected not just him, but his entire extended family network. According to DeHaven, their mothers were best friends who relied on each other. Their sisters were best friends who grew up together. DeHaven's daughter is Jay-Z's goddaughter, a sacred responsibility in any culture. Jay-Z's nephew is DeHaven's godson. These families were intertwined across generations. And now, nobody talks to each other anymore. The silence has spread like a disease through both family trees. And it doesn't stop there. The accusations keep piling up from different corners of the industry. In 2025, Nicki Minaj went on a social media tirade that lasted for days, accusing Jay-Z and Roc Nation of actively sabotaging her career for years. According to Nicki, the sabotage began after she rejected Roc Nation management in 2019, a decision that apparently came with consequences. She claims they've systematically blocked her releases, shadow banned her content across platforms, deployed bot attacks against her social media presence, and suppressed her earnings while boosting rivals like Megan Thee Stallion. Whether you believe Nicki or not, the pattern she describes is eerily consistent with what others have alleged. Then there's Rita Ora. In 2015, Rita actually sued Roc Nation, claiming the label orphaned her after Jay-Z shifted his focus to sports management and his streaming platform Tidal. According to her lawsuit, she was forced to self-fund her own music videos and promotional campaigns while remaining stuck in a dysfunctional contract that prevented her from releasing music elsewhere. Only one album was released despite having multiple records ready to go, records that sat on shelves collecting dust while her career momentum evaporated. The case eventually settled out of court, and Rita was freed from her contract, but the damage to her career trajectory had already been done. Former comedian TK Kirkland has claimed in multiple interviews that Jay-Z deliberately limited promotion for artists on the original Roc-A-Fella label so that no one could ever outsell or outshine him. According to this theory, Jay-Z needed to always be the biggest star on his own label, and anyone who threatened that position would find their promotional budget mysteriously reduced. Artists like Beanie Siegel, Freeway, Memphis Bleak, and Emil have all, at various points over the years, expressed frustration with how their careers were handled under Jay-Z's leadership, careers that showed enormous promise but somehow never reached their full potential. The pattern that emerges from all these stories is disturbingly consistent. A man who allegedly uses his enormous power and influence to lift up those who serve his interests, and systematically crush those who don't, who threaten him, or who simply outlive their usefulness. The legacy in question. Now, before we go any further, let's be absolutely clear about something important. Jay-Z's accomplishments are undeniable. Whatever else you want to say about the man, whatever accusations you want to level at him, whatever former associates want to call him on camera, none of it changes the fact that he has achieved things that nobody in hip-hop history has ever achieved before him. The man has 14 Billboard 200 #1 albums, tied for second most by any solo artist in history, behind only Taylor Swift. He's sold over 140 million records worldwide. He has 25 Grammy Awards, more than any other rapper in history. He was the first living solo rapper inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. The Blueprint album is preserved in the Library of Congress as a culturally significant work of American art. And according to Forbes, his net worth hovers around $2.5 billion, making him hip-hop's first billionaire, a milestone that seemed impossible when he was selling CDs out of car trunks in the mid-1990s. His business empire reads like a masterclass in diversification and strategic thinking. He co-founded Roc-A-Fella Records when no label would sign him, turning rejection into motivation. He sold Roc-A-Ware for over $200 million. He acquired Armand de Brignac Champagne and later sold 50% to LVMH, the world's largest luxury goods company. He launched Douce Cognac and sold majority stakes to Bacardi for hundreds of millions more. He served as president of Def Jam Records, where he signed and developed superstars like Rihanna, who went on to become billionaires themselves. His investment portfolio includes early stakes in companies like Uber and Block that turned modest investments into massive returns, and his philanthropy deserves acknowledgement acknowledgement too. The Sean Carter Foundation has awarded millions of dollars in scholarships to underprivileged youth who come from backgrounds just like his. He's donated to hurricane relief efforts, COVID relief efforts, and criminal justice reform initiatives. He was instrumental in advocating for Meek Mill's release from prison and has been a vocal critic of the probation system that traps so many young black men in cycles of incarceration. This is a man who came from the Marcy Projects, from poverty, from a father who abandoned him when he was just a child, from a youth marked by drug dealing and violence and the constant threat of either prison or death, and built one of the most impressive empires in entertainment history. That's not nothing. That's extraordinary. That's the American dream realized in a way that few people from his background ever experience. But here's the thing about legacies. They're complicated. Human beings are complicated. And the more we hear from Jay-Z's former affiliates, the people who knew him before he was a brand, before he was a billionaire, before he was an institution, the more complicated his legacy becomes. There are legitimate questions that deserve answers, questions that won't go away no matter how many platinum plaques hang on the wall. If DeHaven Irby's account is true, that he took a bullet and a prison sentence for Jay-Z, what does it say about a man who allegedly never looked back, never visited, never sent money, never acknowledged the sacrifice? If Dame Dash's accusations are accurate, that Jay-Z has systematically sabotaged his business deals for 20 years out of pure spite, what does that reveal about how power is wielded in hip-hop and who gets destroyed by it? If Nessa Diab is telling the truth, that she was in the room when Jay-Z acknowledged his NFL deal would harm Kaepernick's movement and proceeded anyway, what does that say about his much publicized commitment to social justice? And then there's the lawsuit that dropped in December 2024 and sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. An anonymous plaintiff alleged that Jay-Z, alongside Diddy, intoxicated and attacked her when she was just 13 years old after the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards. The accusation was horrific. The timing, amid Diddy's own federal legal troubles, seemed calculated. Jay-Z came out swinging harder than he's ever responded to anything in his career, calling the lawsuit blatant blackmail and a heinous attempt to extort him. He didn't hide behind lawyers and no comments. He put out a statement in his own voice, highlighting what he said were glaring inconsistencies in the accuser's story. And in February 2025, the case was dropped with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled, with no settlement paid. Jay-Z subsequently filed his own lawsuit against the accuser's attorney, going on offense rather than simply playing defense. While Jay-Z was legally vindicated in that specific case, the allegation dominated headlines for months and added gasoline to a fire of criticism that was already burning hot. And perhaps more importantly, it highlighted just how vulnerable even the most powerful figures can become when their former associates start talking, when the narrative starts shifting, when the public starts asking questions that used to be considered off limits. What makes all of this so fascinating and so troubling is the consistency of the accusations across decades and industries. Dame Dash from the business world, DeHaven Irby from the streets, Gene Deal from Diddy's camp, Nessa Diab from the sports activism world, Nicki Minaj from the music industry, Rita Ora from the UK pop scene, Beanie Siegel from the original Roc-A-Fella roster. The stories come from different eras, different industries, different types of relationships, but they all circle back to the same recurring themes: betrayal, abandonment, ruthlessness, and an alleged willingness to sacrifice anyone who threatens the empire or simply outlives their usefulness. As DeHaven put it in his interview, when reflecting on the bond he thought he shared with Jay-Z and how it all fell apart.
When you young like that and y'all come up like that, then as I'm coming up, it's beginning, it's not my man, that's my little brother. You get what I'm saying? That's my little brother at this point now when we coming up in the hood.
That's the tragedy at the heart of all this. These weren't just business. Relationships governed by contracts and profit margins. These were brothers. These were family. These were the people who were supposed to eat together forever, who made promises to each other in the streets when they had nothing, who were supposed to remember where they came from, no matter how high they climbed. And one by one, according to their own accounts, they were all left behind in the dust while Jay-Z ascended to heights none of them could have imagined. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave Jay-Z's legacy when the final chapter is written? The truth is, we may never get definitive answers to all these questions. Jay-Z has been notoriously silent on most of these accusations over the years, preferring to let his success speak for itself, preferring to exist above the fray while his critics shout into what often feels like a void. His camp has denied the most serious allegations when forced to respond. And there are plenty of artists, Rihanna, J. Cole, Megan Thee Stallion, athletes like like Kevin Durant and countless others who have credited Roc Nation with elevating their careers to stratospheric heights, not sabotaging them. For every accuser, there's someone who would testify to Jay-Z's generosity and vision. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.